Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guess, fires, throws, does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got it!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway of the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Actually, though, we're at BB's today. We are every Friday, of course. BB's, part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club, one of our great sponsors. Make sure you go to the Wow Club, join up, start earning Wow rewards today to great places like BB's, who is your butcher, your baker, no matter what you need. No matter where you are, visit bbsmarket.com. Visit bbs.com. Stop by. Come in and have breakfast, brunch, lunch, dinner, and all the fixings. How's everybody doing? Hope you had a great day or have had a great week. And your day's off to a great start. Ready for the weekend. Everybody hitting us up early and often on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. We appreciate you guys. Man, a whole bunch of you there. Fred, the Easton Assassin, Kevin, down in Jeffersonville, Howie, Sid, Doug, Kevin, Larry, Robert, Ryan. You guys are at it, man. Sean, Five Lefts is here. Kenneth, appreciate all you guys. Michael. Good game for Purdue last night and the Indiana women's team, as both of them keep winning. And that is a great sign for the Hoosier women's program. That was a big time win. We'll talk about that. Hopefully hear from Terry Moore on that. Of course, previewing Indiana as they take on the who do they play this weekend? I've already forgot. John Boyd.
They've got Ohio State at home.
Yes. It's how do I forget? Because I don't know how it's happened a couple times this year, but the men and women have played the same teams.
What's happened like the last three times? You had Wisconsin, you had Illinois. Who else did they just? They didn't play Minnesota at the same time, but they did play the other three teams.
Which is great, but it makes no sense from the standpoint of it doesn't help with travel. It doesn't help with anything. There's no crossover there other than the schedule. So there's that. But Forrest is substitute teaching today. They let you in. Carl's on with us as well. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Hope you're having a good start to the weekend. Kelvin is along as well. Forrest, I can't believe they let you around those poor kids, man. You may beat them to death. Just kidding. That's a tough job, substitute teaching. Hope everyone's having a great start to their weekend, like I said. We're here at BB's as we are each and every Friday. I hope everybody's having a good start to their day. Not as good as I am, of course. And I have to say, we were out with last night down in Evansville at Bubba's 33 down there, and had a great event for the NIL, Hoosiers for Good, and Hoosiers Connect. Colin Hartman and Tyler Harris both down there, and big thanks to our friend Ben, Big Ben, call him Big Ben. For helping us get that all together. We'll talk about that as well. John Boy, how's your day going?
Well, it's just a lovely Friday for us on the end of the week. We got a little bit of snow down in my neck of the woods overnight. Not too much, and it's probably all going to melt away by the time we get to the afternoon. But Nice to see on this chilly Friday.
Andre on with us with his UK banner, loving it. It says he loves the.
Look, that might be the first UK banner that I've seen on this show.
I can promise you it is the first to appear on. But we appreciate you and love you to death listening down in southern Indiana, where we actually started back in the day. Mike is on as well, down in the land of legend, down there in French Lick. He updated his photo. He's telling us. There you go. So, hopefully the men can pick up a win tomorrow. That will give the men's and women's a win over the Buckeyes this week. That's a lot more important for the women than it was for the, well, I won't say that. It's not true that it's more important for the women. It was a bigger game as far as it was a top 6 matchup for the ladies with Ohio State, even though there are a paper number 2 right now until the next poll comes out after already losing to Ohio State and now losing back-to-back games. But they lost to the 2 best teams in the conference. But it's going to hurt them. I don't know if they drop out of the top 10 or not, but back-to-back games not going to help them in their poll. Philip pointing out that daggone it, Florida Atlantic. No, they did. They beat Middle Tennessee last night, and they are now 20-1. See? How it was good luck for Dusty. He's been on here twice. He came on at the start of the season. He came on here in the middle of the season, and they just keep rolling. So he's going to have to keep coming on. Kenneth says Michigan failed the fans last night, unfortunately for those guys. Well, that's Purdue's job, baby, to win. Just like I continue to call the game against Minnesota, it's my Al Davis win or Al Davis game. Just win, baby. That's one of those games you just win and you get out of town, and you don't complain about it, and you move forward. And as long as you move forward, you don't have to worry about that. 5 Left says that was a great game last night. Not sure which one he was talking about. I'm assuming he's talking about the women's game between Indiana and Ohio State. John pointing out Bellarmine had a good win last night down there in Louisville. Our friend Scotty Davenport, Coach Scotty Davenport, great friend of the show. Congratulations to them as they keep moving. Yeah, they're the best team in Louisville. I'm not sure that a lot of people thought that was.
Louisville is in the sub 300 in the Ken Palm. They're the only Power 5 team or Power 6 team in the 300s. Those are the types of teams that when you play them on your schedule, they hurt your tournament resume no matter how bad you beat them. That's how bad Louisville is at this point. That's like them playing Chicago State or Mississippi Valley State or UT Rio Grande Valley State or whatever the hell it's called. They're the equivalent of one of those teams now, which is absolutely unheard of.
I agree with you. You're right. Ryan was not impressed with Michigan. He watched the whole game. I'm telling you, in the Big Ten, if you pick the wrong night, you're going to come away with that thought. And if you pick a different night watching a team, you're going to come away with a different opinion because this league is very humbling. The Big Ten is very humbling. Indiana is a great example of that. How impressed if you weren't an Indiana fan, how impressed would you think you would have been with Indiana during that 3-game losing streak? How impressed would you be with Indiana during this 3-game winning streak? Big difference in how the team has performed and how they're playing. And, people can say this, that, and the other thing. It's right here, people. It's right here. They made the decision to be better, to play better, to play harder. Mike Woodson made the decision to be harder. You've heard them all talk about it. So stop guessing on why that is. There's no guessing. That's guesswork to this. It's the answers before us. They gave us the answers. But the question now can they sustain that? Can they keep it going on the men's side? The women, they keep on rolling. Because of the event that I had to go to was committed to last night, I was not able to go to the women's game, so did not get to enjoy any of what went on there. How was of those that went? How was the crowd? I'm just reading about it. I mean, our event went late, so is it sold out? What are we talking here, man? But I know that they won, so that's all that matters.
Hey, before we go to our first break, what's Chef JD got going on at BB's right now?
Man, he's killing it. You know, he didn't come in as early as he often used to, but he's back there just making up the good stuff. What would you like for him to make is the better question.
You see, that's a great – it's hard to give a decision whenever all I can do is sit here and dream about what's going to be put in front of you when I'm on the other side of the screen. I tell you what, though, I've been dying to have some of that bacon that you keep showing off.
Dude, I had it yesterday, and it was the best bacon I've ever had in my life. But it's because I do two things now. I stopped frying bacon. I don't fry bacon anymore. I bake it. I bake it on a baking sheet with parchment paper. And yesterday I put black cracked pepper on it, and I had this what was it? A Parmesan and garlic seasoning. Holy cow! Oh my gosh, it was so good. I was so proud of myself. It was great. Yeah, and then easy. And then you just let the pan sit there. You wait till the grease dries. You take the parchment paper and you just throw it away. Clean up the mess. Regular attendance season record again set at Simon Scott Assembly Hall yesterday, and deservingly so. That should happen every game. Especially, it should happen again when Iowa comes to town. That's going to be a gigantic game for this Hoosier squad. Iowa is going to be Iowa's the team that they have to beat to win this Big Ten title. Unfortunately for them, they end the season at Iowa. Fortunately for Iowa, but there you go. Carl giving us the exact number, 10,455. That's the second game over 10,000. That's pretty damn good. Because you're talking about a town the size of Bloomington. I'm very familiar with Louisville's women's program. They would set attendance records, but they're in a city in the middle of a city. Bloomington is not. It's not big, so that is even bigger than what it seems, people. So congratulations to each and everybody. We got to take a break. We got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're coming to you from BB's Market, of course, a part of the WOW Club. Make sure you go and sign up. Start earning WOW rewards today. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here at BB's right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right, go ahead and switch out your microphone if you can.
Oh, yeah.
K-Bro is coming on at 9:10.
K-Bro. Oh. K-Bro. Nobody knows the K-Bros I've seen. Who's up next?
We're empty right now because this is normally where Alec would come in. But I don't mind talking with you if you want to just chat about whatever.
I'm glad you don't mind. Yeah, I wish I would have gotten to see the women's game.
All right, now go into your settings, and when you get that hooked up, make sure to switch to the microphone.
I hear Chef JD behind me.
Chef JD. All right, uno minuto until we're back. And if you need more time, I can make more time, but I heard a switch.
Does it change?
It did change. You're coming through the other mic now.
Oh yeah, I can hear it.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. We are in business.
Rocking and rolling, baby.
More official than ever from BB's Market in Bloomington.
That sounds much Butero.
All right, here we go, senor.
Limestone with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious, 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Friday from BB's Market, where we are each and every Friday. BB is a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Make sure you go there, join the Wow Club, start earning Wow rewards today to great places like BB's or places like Southern Stone Restaurant located at Patterson and Rogers, where you can find great food at great prices. And also each Monday at 7:05 inside Indiana basketball, I should say, with Don Fisher and Mike Whitson at 7:05. Prior to that, Terry Morin is on the program as well. So you can catch both of them each Monday. And right now, they are both rolling. Terry Morin, of course, in the women's program, a gigantic win last night over current number 2 Ohio State. Indiana ranked 6th in the current AP poll. Of course, that's going to change. Ohio State now with back-to-back losses to Iowa and Indiana. Of course, those are both Big Ten or top 10 teams, so it's not going to kill them, but they probably going to drop out of the top 10. But congratulations. Another big game by Mackenzie Holmes as she leads Indiana through a magical season. Where will it end up? Who knows? But this is definitely a Final Four type team. And I'll be honest with you, right now, the way they're looking, the way they're playing, anything less than a Final Four would be very disappointing for this team and this program. Luckily, they probably won't have to go through Iowa, who is also one of the top teams in the country when the tournament rolls around. But, man, this Big Ten women's tournament is going to be something. I'll tell you, between those 3 squads, who's going to make that to the championship game. And then on the men's side, the Big Ten tournament this year. I hadn't thought about that until now, but with the parity, you take Purdue out of that mix, and boy, there are, again, like, was it 11 teams within a game or 2 of each other? It's just mind-boggling how tough it is. 5 Lefts pointing out Garzon, who is a freshman, is a shooting machine for the ladies, and that she is. I hadn't turned it on yet. Talking to Randy here at BB's, the king. Randy's the king. The substitution patterns were a little different, and
he can give a game plan. He can talk to the coaches before the game, and he can advise them on what he would like to do and this. But when the situation happens and when it's live, he can't. He's not there, and he cannot impact that. And if he would take a player out and put a different player in, whether or not that happens, that's going to be on Yazir Rosemont. So that's going to be interesting. Ohio State, again, they have lost 6 out of their last 7, but they're a dangerous team. They need a win, and they're very, very capable of winning. Every team in this league is capable of winning. I think you saw that the other night when Indiana went to Minnesota. So we'll see how that turns out. But we'll talk about that more later on today as we'll be joined. John Boy, who all do we have on the show today? We haven't even made that announcement yet.
Our friend Kevin Brockway joining us here in about 15 minutes. Yeah. It'd be great to catch up with him as always. And then Mr. Zach Osterman from Indy Star going to come on with us as well, be able to talk some men's and women's basketball, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Glad to know Zach is on today. And also from Dotting the I's.
Oh, is that a new podcast?
Yeah, well, it's the Ohio State Rivals. Maybe I didn't send that to you. Maybe you don't know that.
Send that over to me, and we'll make sure we'll talk about him in the break. But yeah, we'll get him on as well.
And we may be getting Angel Escobedo on as well, Indiana wrestling coach. So we'll see what all we can get done here. But plenty to get to. Hope you guys are having a great day. Robert, the truth jumping on. 5 Less says he thinks this is Kenya's scout, and I'm breaking up to Jordan apparently.
No, that might have been earlier. I don't think he's talking about now.
I was kidding. Well, when you're hurt all the way into Jordan, the country, maybe you do break up.
Hey, one thing we haven't mentioned yet, Jim. You told me to save this a couple of days ago, and we never pulled it out. And it's this little newspaper clipping right here.
Oh yeah, I sent this to John. Oh boy, you can't, if you're listening on radio, you can't see this, but I sent him a clip that says the Nickelback summer tour coming to Indy, I was forget where I was going to read it and put that back up.
Okay, I'll pull it back up.
Rock band Nickelback will play the Ruoff Music Center August 19th as part of its recently announced Get Rollin' tour. Let's see, it's its 10th album, Get Rollin'. Do you know all this stuff, John?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going, but I did see the announcement, and I have listened to the new album. It's
are you like? Are you in their? Best, are you in their fan club?
No, I'm not. I'm not in any band's fan club, even though I may sound like I am.
I'm kidding. I'm just.
Here's kidding. The thing. I've seen Nickelback 3 times. They put on a good show, but I don't feel like I need to see them again right now. Yeah, I've seen them before 3 times. Like I said, seen them in Cincinnati. It was my very first concert when I was in high school.
To Cincinnati? Oh wow.
Saw them a couple years later at the Yum Center in Louisville, and then saw them again in Cincinnati in college with my fiance at the time, who is obviously my wife now. So yeah, but you can only. I've had, like I said, that's 3 shows in the span of like 7 or 8 years. I don't need to see Nickelback again right now.
Probably a good point. Chris asking a good question. He wonders how much time y'all had before he knew he was going to coach. They found out that morning, so it was that day. Here's the thing. He's never been a head coach at any level. Never even been in that position other than coaching some 12-year-olds prior. I heard him say after the game, which was a little surprising, that you can get that far. He's coached, he said, 21 years. It's amazing you can coach that long and not be in a position of being in charge. That makes me wonder. I'm like, wow. So when you're giving advice, it's kind of hard to give advice from the standpoint if you've never been in that position. It's good that he's getting that experience right now, but it makes you think, while there are a lot of advisors that Mike has, how much college head coaching? There's no college head coaching experience on that bench. That's something to think to consider. But yeah, they definitely seem like they missed Woodson, Coach Mike Woodson the other night. But it's hard to say because one of those games was coming. There was no way that kind of game was not coming. John Kyler says when you come up to see Nickelback at Ruoff, he's going to treat you to a beer.
I tell you what, I will come up if someone can just scout me some free tickets because I don't want to pay to see Nickelback again. I've already done that. I'm also planning on seeing Shinedown in a couple of months anyway, again in Cincinnati at the Heritage Bank Center.
John, the king of the kind of off bands.
You don't? How about you like Shinedown?
I like some of Shinedown stuff. Yeah, I used to use them for. We used to use their music for on the show.
Let's get to remember. There's a generation of rock between us. You're a Guns N' Roses, AC/DC kind of guy. I listen to Shinedown, Nickelback kind of stuff.
Yeah, but that's because Guns N' Roses and AC/DC are still kings of the rock universe.
I won't deny that. They're still around. They're still selling out arenas, stadiums, whatever you want to call it. I can't deny that at all, no.
Exactly. Robert, what are you asking here? Let's see. Can you hear? What's he saying?
He may be trying. My guess is he did talk to text or whatever, and it.
He's asking about the 2023 class. Yeah, there's not a lot I mean, it is what it is. For one thing, they don't know. There's certain guys that are going to be gone. Trace Jackson Davis is an interesting case. I'm not convinced that he's gone as everyone else is. For one thing, as much as you people like to think otherwise, he's not a first-round draft pick. He has still not learned how to shoot the ball, and that hasn't changed. And until that changes, his draft status is not going to change. Yeah, he's playing a lot more effectively as a college player and what he's doing in college, but that doesn't change his NBA status. It may raise it a little bit, but no one's running to draft him right now because, hey, did you see what Trace Jackson Davis did the other night? He's kicking those college kids' ass. They don't care. You know why? They don't have college kids. They got men. So I'm not convinced that Trace Jackson Davis is gone for that reason. He will make more money staying in college than he will by being than he will otherwise. So it'll be interesting. We got to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll pick that conversation up with K-Bro. That and among other things. As you see, Billy Packer passed away. Holy cow. He's definitely a legend of the game. But we got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality. Go team, where you can get right here at BB's Market, right kept in the cooler, man. They keep running out of it, so people are loving that stuff. Or you can go to GoTeamBites.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
Oh, man, I had to. Jim, if you could hear me, send me that info for the Ohio State Rivals guy. Morning, K-Bro.
Morning. How are you?
We are doing well. Have you been with us since he's done a show on at BB's?
I've seen it, though. It's good food there, huh?
Mm-hmm. It looks delicious. I've never had it, but I need to. Next time I'm in B-Town, I need to stop by.
BB's Marketplace.
I think it's just market. I don't think it's because he used to call it marketplace. I'm like, it's not marketplace, it's market.
BB's Market. Is that the one by the mall or no?
No,
No, that's not.
it's
that
by
one.
Bloomington South. It's by Bloomington South High School.
Oh, okay.
Jim, send me the Ohio State Rivals guys info. Is he 950?
You know what? Let me send it to you. And Angel Escobedo's info too. Damn it.
Do either of them have times?
No.
All right, I'll see if I'll just. Do they even know?
Yeah.
Like, have you? Okay, so you just never got a time from them.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try to reach out to them and see if they're available.
Let's see. Oogum Gangnam style. Boom, 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 boom. K-Bro. Whoopum Gangnam style.
K-Bro style.
Boom, boom, whoopum K-Bro style. Yeah, there you go. K-Bro style. Boom,
something like that.
Whoopum K-Bro style. Boom, boom.
Right, so what are we talking about? Billy Packer died? I heard you said that.
I just saw that. Yeah, man. He was not my favorite person. I've got to be honest with you.
Why not? He kind of called it like
kind of
he
was kind of a
Teddy
dick.
Boucher, I remember when he was in the Final Four.
Well, because I worked for CBS, and he was the only guy that I thought was kind of a dick.
Yeah.
All right, I got to send this information.
All right, 30 seconds. Go ahead and pull us back.
Kidney failure.
Southern Stone Restaurant on Patterson and Rogers. It's one of the most popular gathering spots in Bloomington. Whether you're out on a date with your spouse, friends, or coworkers, Feast Market and Cellar offers an extensive wine selection with a sommelier on staff to help you with your selections. Feast also provides a wide variety of cheeses, gourmet sandwiches, entrees, a coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Friday from BB's Market, of course, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wild Club, and brought to you by Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Welcome back, and we're joined now by one of our absolute favorites, K-Bro. Joins us, Kevin Brockway, from the Gainesville Sun, formerly from CNHI up here in Indiana. How's it going, brother?
It's going well. I guess it's going well down there. Hoosiers have won 4 in a row. I think I was tweeting to a fan. I don't remember in the 3 years that I covered the team that they won 4 in a row in Big Ten play, and yet people are upset about Yasir Rosemond and the job he did as the interim coach. And I would just say to Hoosier fans, relax and enjoy it, and hope it continues.
Yeah, I agree. It's the whole time I'm on. After that game, I was like, you know what? People are going to lose their mind about this, and I was just kind of laughing because I'm like, well, this is one of those just win games. I'll get it. This is one of those just win games, and I'm like, I call it an Al Davis game. Just win, baby. Just win. Get on the plane. You go home. It's a conference game. I don't care what conference you're in. You're going to have these games, and no better situation than that. You don't have your head coach. You've won 3 in a row. You're kind of feeling your chest is puffed a little bit, and they were not supposed to be able to do anything because they were shorthanded. Perfect timing for a perfect storming. that's the perfect storm. But they weathered it. They came through. They did what they needed to do. They stopped Minnesota at the end, holding them 0 for their final 11 shots. And Indiana went on a 7-0 run to finish the game. Boom. Stop complaining. You move on to Ohio State. That's your worry. Your only worry should be Ohio State right now, because you're not going to have Mike Woodson there either.
Yeah, and Malik Renew is playing a little better too, and Trace Jackson Davis is obviously playing at a tremendously high level. And you've got Renew, you've got Race Thompson back, you've got Geronimo. I mean, you've got some bodies in the post, and I guess they're shooting it okay. I mean, Tamar Bates looked like he shot the ball really well against Michigan State. Miller Kopp has been, I guess, kind of up and down, but I think that's the thing is, are you going to get that perimeter shooting, to beat teams when teams zone you and try to take Trace away? That's still kind of the kryptonite of Indiana at this point, I would think, but it looks like they're defending better as well.
Absolutely. How are things going with you before we get into all that? I know that you had a big story this week with the NIL deal that Florida had signed, $1 million NIL deal, which first of all,
I think you froze up on me. Are we back?
Yep.
We back.
So what do you?
Well, we're back.
So we're talking about the NIL deal. Yeah, $13 million. I mean, it was a ridiculous month, Jim, trying to sort through the fact and the fiction of that. And basically, it was an NIL deal gone bad. I mean, it was somebody promising something they couldn't deliver. And a collective, a member of a collective, it got pretty messy. It got public. And it was a situation where, I think the administrators at Florida were kind of left scrambling, trying to figure out what's going on. Because don't forget, I mean, the way this system is set up, the school isn't supposed to know, at least not until the player gets to campus. And the player hadn't gotten
but we all know that that's crap.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the school. I think some schools do it differently than others. And I think in Florida's case, they're claiming they didn't know. I mean, whether they did or they didn't, or where the communication breakdown was, certainly was, but I think the first red flag of the situation was signing day. It took him an extra hour beyond when the press conference was supposed to start to sign. At that point, I think Florida did know about the deal and were trying to renegotiate the deal. And it just went sideways. But we interviewed the kid. I mean, I drove down to the Under Armour game in early January, right after New Year's Day, and he said he was excited about being a Gator, and then just didn't show up for the spring semester. And that was, the second red flag. And it became public that, whatever deal they tried to get in place for NIL dissolved. And definitely an embarrassment for Florida, but and it hurts their quarterback situation too. Although they do have a kid coming in 2024, a 5-star, that's really, as talented if they can sign him. But now they're going to be relying on Graham Mertz. But I think it speaks a lot to NIL and kind of the way the system is right now. And it's let's face it, it's a flawed system at this point.
Well, now, and plus you got somebody, if I was coming in, I'd say, if you want me to start a quarterback for you, I'm going to need a little bit more of that money you got left on the table that you didn't pay your boy.
I mean, it's a strange situation. I mean, the other thing that I had heard is that when Napier finally caught wind of the deal, he wouldn't sign off on it because of the fact that, Jaden Rashada would have been the second highest paid player in the building besides him, right? $13 million. So, from a locker room standpoint, I mean, that would be tremendously difficult, right, to navigate when you had your players knowing that someone was making that kind of money.
Yeah, Ed asking, do the schools have to be involved in these NIL deals? They're not supposed to be involved in these NIL deals. The schools, it's supposed to be separate, which is kind of stupid if you ask me. It's another stupid thing that the NCAA has done, pretending that these schools are not involved. You know what? You can turn your head if you want, but it's ridiculous. That's why you end up with situations like Florida ended up with, because the school is not supposed to be in charge of it. Well, if you put the schools in charge of it, then these situations won't happen. Or if they do, you know exactly who's responsible for that. So I think it's kind of dumb to pretend that schools aren't involved, that they don't know exactly what player is being offered what. If anybody thinks that, let me put that aside for you. It ain't true. It ain't so. I'm not saying that the schools are sitting in on these negotiations and all that, but to pretend that they don't know, no, I promise you. There's no way that there aren't conversations with coaches. Kevin, I think you would agree. The coaches have to have a say in who's getting what.
Yeah, but I think what happens is that, it happens once they get to campus too. And I mean, I found it fascinating. It's interesting, right? Ryan Day put out the figure last year, $13 million to fund a program, and now you're talking about one $13 million player, and that's how much it's escalated in 1 year. But I think that, I think different schools do it to different degrees. But I think, another situation is right now is that there's no fear from the NCAA about it being used as a recruiting inducement at this point, because people view the NCAA as basically powerless, like a guy, basically that their enforcement arm, if they try to enforce something, it's going to get challenged and it's going to get shot down in court anyway. So who really cares? So we are left with this system right now where it's basically disorganized chaos, and that's where we are in NIL. And it's interesting that I wonder how much Indiana basketball is using its brand, the way Florida football is trying to do to attract these players as well.
Yep, mentioned a little bit ago, but I had talked about Billy Packer, longtime voice of NCAA basketball. He played at Wake Forest. As a matter of fact, at Christmas time, I was fortunate to have dinner with a guy who played at Wake Forest on the team with Billy Packer, and that played against Bob Knight in the 1962 Final Four. So that was pretty incredible for me. But Billy Packer has passed away at the age of 82. So sad news. I think he's still living in North Carolina, I believe.
Yeah, and Billy Packer was a guy who kind of called it like he saw it, right? And that rubbed some people the wrong way, like he wasn't above questioning or criticizing players. I remember in the 2000 Final Four, he referred to Teddy DuPay as a dirty player, and that got Florida fans really in ire because of I think he had a hard foul against Mateen Cleaves, or either in the Final Four game or the championship game. So it was like I said, he was a very polarizing guy, and obviously had a pretty long run, right? He called Final Fours up until 2006, 2007, 2008 for CBS, and obviously rest in peace, and an icon in the industry.
Yeah, he briefly, just like Dick Vitale, briefly entered coaching. They found out that wasn't for them, and it went into announcing instead. But Billy Packer, 34 straight Final Fours, man.
Quite a run. And he called all those Indiana, right? All those. What was his relationship like with Bob Knight? I wonder.
It's a good question. I don't know, because he was an ACC guy, not a Big Ten guy, so I don't know that he went out of his way to establish that. And I don't know. While CBS did quite a few Indiana games back in the day, back then you didn't have the Big Ten network that had all these games on all the time. So it was not as common as for them to do a game. It was a bigger deal.
Yeah, but CBS did a lot of the Big Ten games, right? Along with, obviously they do SEC games for basketball as well. But the Big Ten seemed to be one of their CBS's contracts over the years before the Big Ten Network got involved.
And as is again now, as we'll see, the Big Ten will be on CBS a lot coming up.
What did you think about Kevin Warren resigning?
I think it's the best thing that's happened to the Big Ten since Kevin Warren was hired as a commissioner.
Well, he did strike that big TV deal. You got to give him that.
No,
and he got USC and UCLA. And
yes, everybody see. All right, USC came to the Big Ten. Fox came to the Big Ten. He didn't strike Jack. Fox struck that. Fox created all of that. Fox spearheaded that. Fox owns 61% of the Big Ten network. They did everything. It was in their best interest, so they did it all. They did all the legwork. The USC came to the Big Ten. The Big Ten didn't do anything. I don't see the Big Ten having done anything during his tenure that was out in front, that was front-forward thinking, and which the Big Ten had always been known for as the conference that was the leading conference for everything under longtime Commissioner Jim Delaney. Prior to that, and I just don't think. I think this conference took a step backwards during his tenure, and I think it is good that he is gone. It's sad that we're still left with the crap of having to go to Minneapolis for the Big Ten tournament next year, only because of he was here, because that wouldn't have happened had he not been here. But I think it's the best thing that's happened to the league since he was hired.
You going to be able to hitch a ride to Minneapolis or no? Or how many hours is that? Like 15, 20 hours? Or
Maybe they fly airplanes to Minneapolis.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're going to fly. Okay, that's good.
Nobody drives to Minneapolis from here. Well, at least I don't. No way. But, yeah, I just – now the thing is who replaces him? And – do they make the same mistake twice? The commissioner of the ACC, Jim Phillips, is the guy who should have been hired as the commissioner of the Big Ten the last time around. He was with the Big Ten, and they didn't hire him, and he left immediately afterwards to become the commissioner of the ACC. Hopefully they don't make that mistake twice. We'll see. I don't think they do. And,
well, who's going to be the guy then? Who do you think?
Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC. I hope that they don't make the same mistake.
To come to the Big Ten, is that what you think?
He left the Big Ten to go there because they didn't hire him as the commissioner last time. They made that mistake, like I said. And
you think
he should have been the commissioner already?
Do you think he feels spurned and he won't want to go, or do you think he's happy at the ACC, or no? Or
well, the ACC is not close to being the same league the Big Ten is. They're down in basketball. Hey, but football, they're non-existent. They're a non-existent league when it comes to football. You just don't – Miami, teams like that Virginia Tech aren't what they used to be, and it's not just that. You don't have anybody taking their place. You got Clemson, and that's it. So
Florida State is starting to get a little better. They're starting to come on a little bit under Norvell. They're starting to get a little better, but – I agree with you. Other than Clemson and Florida State, you don't have much depth in that league. And it's, obviously the television markets too. It's problematic, and I think in the ACC, because if you look at the television markets, it's like Pittsburgh, it's a pro sports market. Miami, they kind of like the Hurricanes, but still pretty much a pro sports market. And there are a lot of Gator and Seminole fans in Miami too. So you have a Boston College as a pro sport, so you have a lot of like pro sport markets. It just doesn't, lend itself to being, a powerful, well-viewed college sports conference, I think.
I agree with you. And lots coming up. What's new with you in the SEC? You cover the Florida Gators right now. They're not having a great year. We had Dusty May on the show by the way the other day from Florida Atlantic. They're killing it, baby. How about what's going on down there?
They're in the top 25. I vote them in the top 25. I mean, Florida's playing a little better. They've won 5 of 6. And they just beat up on South Carolina the other night by 21. So they're 12-8. They're starting to get on the bubble. The problem is they got the SEC Big 12 Challenge tomorrow. They're at Kansas State, number 5 in the country. Then they come home to face Tennessee, 4 in the country. Then they go to Rupp to face Kentucky. And then they face number 2 Alabama. It's a brutal stretch. So 3 top 5 teams, and you're facing Kentucky at Rupp. So it's going to be very difficult. And the big story here, obviously, is Keontae Johnson, who is playing for Kansas State. He had the cardiac episode 2 years ago. He, basically, was in critical condition on the court. I mean, his heart almost stopped on the court. Very similar to the DeMar Hamlin situation. And Florida would not medically clear him, but Kansas State did, and now he is in the running for Big 12 Player of the Year at Kansas State. And Florida is facing him. And it's obviously an emotional situation. It's also a situation where I've heard a few fans grumble about, hey, why didn't Florida clear him, yada, yada. Florida could not take that chance. They did not want another Hank Gather situation on their hands. But fingers crossed that, Kansas State, that he obviously, finds his career there and has done a good job with, rebounding and coming back from that.
Yeah, hopefully so. What else has been up for you? What are you doing? Are you able to keep an eye on the Hoosiers?
Yeah, I haven't. No, I've been watching quite a bit of their games, and I have been impressed at how they found themselves, with regards to the injuries, with regard to Race and regards to Xavier Johnson still being out. I think Hood Shafino is playing great. He's playing at a high level. But I think that, it's interesting because you look back at, that loss to Northwestern and you're thinking at the time, God, that's a terrible loss in Assembly Hall and stuff. And Northwestern is playing pretty well. So they might be better than, people thought this season. Chris Collins has them playing pretty well. So I don't know. You still look back on that stretch, though, where they weren't defending very well. And you looked at some missed opportunities for some wins in league play. But they're certainly on a roll now. And I know their schedule is going to get, probably tougher in February because they've still got the 2 games with Purdue coming up. And that'll be Trace Jackson Davis's opportunity, right, Jim?
Always.
Who's going to be Player of the Year, Trace Jackson Davis or Zach Edey? Well, there you go. You got 2 games, mano a mano there, where we can kind of figure it out and determine who's going to be the National Player of the Year, because both are definitely All-Americans at this point.
Well, and that's a great question for someone who is completely outside and is not no bias. Who do you see as the Player of the Year in the Big Ten right now?
Well, yeah, no, right now,
this point.
Right now, I'd still have to give it to Edey, but
why? And why?
Why? Just because he's been dominant the whole season. I think with Trace, he had the back issues early in the year, so I think you have to take into account the body of work. Now,
but even with the back issues, he played fine during that. Except Indiana had a poor stretch that I don't think had anything to do with his back issues. I think it just had anything to do with intestinal fortitude issues with his team. It wasn't just in Trace Jackson Davis, because he played well in some of the games they lost. So he played well even in some of the games they lost. But to me, I think he is the Player of the Year right now. Purdue is doing better than Indiana as a whole, but I don't think that Zach Edey is doing better. Trace Jackson Davis has done things that no player has done in 25 and 30 years. We're not hearing that about Zach Edey. Zach Edey has been very consistent, and I'm not taking anything away from him, but he has not done what Trace Jackson Davis is obviously capable of doing and is doing and has done. So to me right now, Trace Jackson Davis is my Player of the Year in the Big Ten. I'm not going to knock him.
Zach Edey, 21, 13 rebounds, 61.1% from the field. Where's Trace right now?
I can tell you this. I ran the numbers myself. I know Trace Jackson Davis outplayed Zach Edey throughout the month of January in the Big Ten.
All right. I mean, that's like I said, teams are taking.
And I'm not saying that for. I hate when people think I'm a homer, because I'm not. But I also I hate when people just base things on wins. And yeah, Purdue has got a better team, has had a better season in Indiana up to this point. But Indiana had they played a little bit tougher schedule, but they had some games where they had to find themselves. And that's that. But in Big Ten play, Trace Jackson Davis has turned a corner and become a completely different player and gone to a different level. I have not seen Zach Edey go to another level. He's, like I said, been very consistent, but he's been consistent here and not stepped it up where I see the difference in Trace Jackson Davis.
Well, we'll see. February will tell a lot. I think that's going to be an interesting month. I would still take Edey at this point, but I think Trace has a chance to make up some ground here in the next couple of weeks, and if he does, then that I think that'll be good for Indiana at this point. And I think for the Hoosiers, like I said, it looks like barring collapse, you're gonna have another NCAA tournament season for Mike Woodson. I mean, how far they go, we would call it. We will see at this point and what kind of seed they get, but it's looking really promising and it's looking in the right direction. And I think Renew and Hood Shafino are two guys too that certainly you're going to see them play better in February and March. The freshmen, it usually takes February and March for them to really, really figure it out, and I think that really bodes well for Indiana. And you're starting to see Renew figure it out, right? And you're definitely seeing Hood Shafino figure it out, which is, Indiana has not had that dynamic guard during Trace's tenure, and they finally have it now, which I think will bode well in February and March for that team.
And I'll tell you, someone who I've given a lot of grief to is Miller Kopp, who in the last game for Indiana showed me something different. The game before that, actually, I saw some emotion out of him. And that was the first time this year I'd seen any emotion out of him. In the last game, not only was he playing with emotion, he was looking to shoot the ball. Hell, he had 2 shots in the first opening minutes of the game, which is more than he had in the first 30 minutes of the previous game. So him looking to shoot the ball, being more proactive, being more in tune to that offense, hugely important for this team. And he scored 11 points, and it wasn't about how much he scored, but he took shots. He put up 9 shots as opposed to putting up 1 shot or 2 shots for an entire game. You cannot have a guy like Miller Kopp play 35 minutes and put up 2 shots. He's got to do what he did in the last game, which he greatly impacted that game, and is another reason why they're able to win at Minnesota. They would have lost if Miller Kopp didn't do what he did. Forget about Trace Jackson Davis's 25 and 21. It doesn't matter without Miller.
It's weird because his connection issues don't seem like they just happen so suddenly, right, K-Bro?
Yeah, he's frozen up for sure.
I know. What a great face if you're watching on YouTube to be looking at right now.
I love it.
Mid-sentence.
I love it. Yeah, he's got the jowls going and everything.
Well, I don't want to end the segment without Jim knowing, so while we're waiting to figure out what's going on with Jim's connection, K-Bro, I don't know if you saw what we were talking about earlier, but our good friends Nickelback are coming to Indianapolis, and
how about that? Yeah,
later this summer. And Jim printed out a newspaper clipping, right here to show what was going on. I don't think I'm going to go though. I've already seen him 3 times. People in the comments were saying I need to go see him in Indianapolis. Kyler Staley, one of Jim's writers, says he'll buy me a beer if I go see him at Ruoff in Indianapolis.
So they're going to be at Ruoff, right?
Yeah, they're playing, or most people know it as Deer Creek. But that's where they're playing, the outdoor amphitheater. But I don't think I need to see Nickelback again currently. Not that they have put on a bad show, but I've seen them enough in my lifetime thus far.
Well, John, if today was my last day, I would not be listening to Nickelback.
That's right. That's of course. All right, K-Bro, what else is coming up for you down in the great state of Florida?
Well, we've got, signing day coming up again. So I'm sure we'll be peppering Billy Napier a bunch of questions about the situation with, obviously Jaden Rashada and basketball. And we'll see if the Gators can survive that stretch. I mean, that's just going to be a brutal stretch beginning tomorrow against Kansas State. I mean, 3 of their next 4 are against top 5 opponents, Tennessee and Alabama, and then you go to Rupp to face Kentucky. So it's going to be a really tough 2 weeks, and see if Florida can somehow survive it. And if they do, then maybe they'll have a chance to sneak into the tournament.
We'll just have to see. It's interesting. We're not too far removed from, just 13 years since their back-to-back national titles. So, but Kevin, we appreciate you. Jim, any final thoughts for Kevin before we let him head off?
No, just great to see you, K-Bro, as always, man. Appreciate you stopping by and having on, and we love you. When you come on, it's always fun times. What are you doing for fun? You've been chasing gators? You've been gator fishing, going down to the swamp? What are you doing, man?
It's hey, it's kind of cold here this morning. It feels like Indiana weather here. It's like 40 degrees. So just doing my usual thing in Gainesville, and going out to Paynes Prairie, getting some hikes in, get some walks in, and it is hopefully soon it'll be beach weather, maybe February and March, get back to the beach again a little bit.
Absolutely, brother. Well, we appreciate you stopping by and look forward to doing it again.
Yep. As always, Jim. Appreciate it. And maybe we'll see you guys down in Orlando.
Hope so. Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun joining us here, formerly of the CNHI papers up here covering Indiana Beat. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by our good friends from Barber Pop Real Estate Services. For those of you down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area, whether it's Floyd, Clark, Harris, and Scott counties, they've served the communities for 3 decades. Make sure you look up Barbara at barbrapop.com or Matt at barbrapop.com. We're back with Zach Osterman from the Indy Star after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore.
Morning, Zach.
Hey, sorry, I was.
Oh, you're fine. We ended up going along with Kevin anyway, so you're fine.
Okay. I'll totally confess, I was just trying to get some extra sleep because there have been some late nights this week. And
no problem. Yeah, trust me, I understand.
I just blew through my alarm, so
I've done it before too.
Let me go get like some water or something.
No, you're good. You're good.
Right, I'll be right back.
What are these comments? See, we've got some people saying, good job, appreciate it, Fred. But then you got others saying, 1 dead minute and straight to Nickelback. You need a support group. Listen, Sean, when I'm sitting here producing a show and something goes haywire, you have to go to something. And I hadn't brought up the Nickelback topic to Kevin, and I thought it'd be funny. I knew his thoughts would be interesting. I don't need a support group. I'm sure you're joking too. I'm just throwing that out there. Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Angel Escobedo is going to come on at 10:10.
Perfect.
I haven't heard from Bill Landis yet. Let me see. Maybe I did. Hold on. I think I might have the wrong email. I typed in the wrong email for him because I've got a message delivery failure for him. Let's try this again. Got 40 seconds. Look at that. That's hilarious, Sean. Jim, one of the commenters about Nickelback says there was a girl mosh pit when he saw him in Deer Creek years ago. I think that's hilarious. Jim, you're muted, by the way. Jim, you muted yourself. All right, we're coming back.
Freshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Mohonda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here, coming to you from BB's Market, of course. Lee Butler stopping in to say hi to Zach. He was giving you a wave. Come on over here, Lee. Give our friend.
Hey, Zach.
There he is.
How we doing?
Yes, he says, how are you, Lee?
I'm doing great.
Zach Osterman from Indy Star stopping by. Of course, Indiana, the ladies. First of all, talk about the ladies. I know that's not your beat per se, but the women are just rolling. Big game last night as the Ohio State Buckeyes, current ranked number 2. Of course, that's going to change after the poll comes out after losing back-to-back games to Iowa and Indiana. But huge game for Indiana, huge win for Indiana. Terry Moore has that squad. They are continuing to roll. Greatest season probably ever in women's basketball history.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the best start. Obviously, they've played in a Big Ten championship game. They've played in an Elite Eight, so this team's got a ways to go to kind of match it in March. But, I think there's obviously, I think people have talked about this, that Indiana lost obviously some longtime pieces last year. Ali Patberg, Nicole Cardano-Hillary, Alexa Goulbe, etc. And to kind of bounce back, a couple of really impact transfers, a really good freshman. It's a credit to kind of just the consistency, I guess, of the culture, for lack of a better term, that Terry Moore has built. But I think if you also just look at this team, I mean, Chloe Moore McNeil and Grace Berger are both really good, tough ball handlers. Sydney Parrish gives you length and some toughness. Not that Indiana wasn't tough last year, but when you've got somebody that I think will she's got a great shot, but she'll also scrap for rebounds, for steals, for loose balls. And when you've got somebody who will do that and also give you the length she gives you, that makes a real difference to the way you can defend opponents and the mismatches you can create. I mean, Yarden Garzon, I'm going to be honest, like, she's tracking toward Big Ten Freshman of the Year. I think this guy may be the limit for her. She looks outstanding.
It's incredible.
And I mean, like, it's also kind of one of those too where, I mean, she was great last night, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. She hit 3 threes in 3 straight possessions in that third quarter where Indiana was plus 21 and pulled away. But it's one of those too. I remember thinking this about Carson Edwards when he was at Purdue. He wasn't scoring a ton of points when he was young because he didn't need to. Purdue had older players, but you saw him and you just thought, that is a kid who's going to be really, really good. Once he grows into his game a little bit more, once his team needs him to be a little bit more of a ball-dominant player, he is going to be a difference maker. And that is what Garzon looks like to me. And she's got the 3-point shot. She can rebound. She's got good defensive instincts. Again, you're talking about somebody who brings length and can create physical mismatches. She can be very good. And then, of course, Mackenzie Holmes is just playing at an All-American level right now. 26 points and 4 rebounds last night, 11 of 13 from the floor. She eventually fouled out long after the game was decided, in about the last 30, 35 seconds.
How did she only end up with 4 rebounds is the most amazing stat to me.
Well, and on a night where there were plenty of rebounds to go around, but Sydney Parrish and Yarden Garzon combined for 21. I mean, and again, that goes back a little bit to this idea that Indiana's got length and size that can sneak up on you, because you tend to think about length as your 4 or your 5, but both of those players really can play more like a 3, Parrish and Garzon. And so you don't maybe, at first blush, you don't think that they're going to crash the board so well. But I mean, Sydney Parrish was in foul trouble most of last night. You know, she played 32 minutes. She had a double-double. Garzon had a double-double as well. I think there are ways that this group, it's not maybe as experienced in terms of the time it's had together as last year was, because that team had 2 or 3 years of kind of uninterrupted success as a group. But this team, I think, can be a bit more of a mismatch problem when you start getting into, obviously, matchups like last night, or when you play Iowa or Maryland. Certainly once you get into the tournament and you've got to, you get past maybe the opponents you're expected to beat, and you start getting into like the UConns or the South Carolinas or whatever. You think about the Tennessee game earlier this season. This team can really match you up in some difficult ways to defend.
And the Indiana men's program coming around, obviously having getting back to having the type of season that the fans wanted to see them have, along with this women's program, which has coming on a number of years now, where they are sustaining their growth. If the men's and women's program can continuously be good at the same time, Indiana could potentially really be a juggernaut in that sport because of the history, the legacy of basketball in this state, at that school at Indiana University. But it has never been that way for the women, and being able to really parlay that on to Indiana, the basketball and all that, and the coaching job that Terry Morin is doing, the success they're having, they could really turn that into a juggernaut of a program.
I mean, I wrote this last night. Notre Dame, Purdue, Louisville, to some extent Kentucky, obviously Ohio State. So many of the Power 5 or high major, whatever term you want to use, programs in this area have been really, really good at women's basketball at one time or another in just the last 30 years. Purdue was one of the best teams one of the best programs in the country in the 90s and early 2000s. Notre Dame speaks for itself. Louisville has been really good under Jeff Walls. Ohio State's been good under multiple head coaches, and obviously the Big Ten, it goes without saying, will support programs at that level. Big Ten programs are constantly in and around the top 15, the top 10, etc. Indiana had never found a way to kind of get that going, and it's it's possible that how many of those programs, and this is true in basically any college sport, how many of those programs can coexist alongside one another at an elite level will always be kind of a difficult question to answer. But it feels like it's Indiana's turn now, and to your point about the men, if the men can kind of rise up and match that, I was thinking about it while you were talking there. The only comparison that comes to mind, and if we sat here and racked our brains, we could think of a few more, but the only comparison that comes immediately to mind would have been early mid-2000s UConn. Late 90s to mid-2000s UConn, when Jim Calhoun was winning national titles on the men's side, and Gina Auriemma, of course, was building and then sustaining an absolute superpower on the women's side. I think, listen, this is a fan base that I think would absolutely embrace that. Last night was genuinely as loud as I've heard Assembly Hall, and it was only the lower bowl, but in some ways I think that almost made it louder because there was more empty space for the sound to bounce into and out of and back to the floor. And I started my sports writing career, such as it is, covering IU women's basketball for the Indiana Daily Student in the fall of 2007. And I talked to Jeremy Gray, who's an associate athletic director at IU, about this. At the time, he was the women's basketball play-by-play voice, and that was where I met him. And we would sit on press row, and they would be lucky to fill the bleachers immediately around the court, and then maybe get kind of a small hump of people in sort of the premium seats around mid-court up in the lower bowl. That was, if they got 1,000 people in the building, that was a good night. Last night they had 10,000, and start to finish, nobody acted like it was. Everyone appreciated it, but no one acted like it was unexpected. No one acted like it was a big deal in the sense that everyone kind of knew they were going to get a big crowd. It was going to be raucous, and they were going to win the game. And what was remarkable about it, and this was kind of the hook of what I wrote last night, was what was remarkable about it was that it's not remarkable anymore. That here in Terry Morin's 9th year, this is just what Indiana women's basketball is. And I think if you look again at what Terry's been able to do, certainly in terms of building her rosters and that, et cetera, and then you look at the historical nature of what Notre Dame has been able to do in the sport, what Purdue has been able to do in the sport, what Louisville's been able to do in the sport, you say there's no reason that Indiana can't sustain this. There's no reason that Indiana cannot, make this something that lasts.
I agree absolutely, and looking forward to that because we're probably going to see at least 2 more home games that potentially might break that record. Purdue, when Purdue comes down to play, and of course when Caitlin Clark in Iowa comes in, that will be just an absolute big time game for all of college basketball to be paying attention to. And I'm not talking about just women's basketball. I'm talking about on either side. That's going to be a big time game on TV for people to watch, and deservedly so, with what Iowa has accomplished and with what this Indiana team has accomplished.
And I think, we can spin this out 1,000 different ways, but I think about Caitlin Clark. I think about, the way that she has used, I think, the NIL space to really grow exposure for women's basketball in the last couple of years. I think about the value of players like that and players like Mackenzie Holmes and Grace Berger staying in college and strengthening the college game. And it's obviously a different dynamic between, on the women's side versus the men's side, college versus pro and all that. But it's great for the women's game, and at the same time, again, it's also something that 2 or 3 years ago you would have said, "Wow, look where IU basketball is. Look at the company that they're keeping." Caitlin Clark is one of the most remarkable basketball players we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years. And, Ohio State, Kevin McGuff has turned Ohio State back into a powerhouse and all this. Look at the company they're keeping. Well, now you just kind of look around and you say, like, well, yeah, that, this is Indiana has made this conversation as much as it has, joined the conversation. In some ways, it has made the conversation. And you just, like I said, I do sometimes shake my head at it because I would not have, and baseball went through a similar transition, about 10 years ago, and because it's funny because I covered women's basketball and baseball back to back that academic year 07-08, and it was kind of the same thing. I remember standing with Tracy Smith and laughing about all the quirky little, terrible things that were wrong with Sim Bauer, and there were 400 people in the stands, and people were bringing their own, Taco Bell, and there was one working bathroom and all this kind of stuff. And then, within 5 or 6 years, you're getting 3,000-4,000 people showing up. Indiana's beating top 10 teams. Indiana's winning regionals. Indiana's going to Omaha. This is what can happen if you get the right people in the right places and you empower them. And I mean, the job Terry Morin has done building that program and building it, in a consistent way. It's always been, she has had a real, she has found a formula that works really well for her in terms of the balance of high school recruits that develop within the program, when to seek out transfers, how to identify transfers that will fit her program, her system, her style, her personality, how to integrate, transfers, because we talked so much in the last few years about the growth of the portal and how do you get the portal right and all that kind of stuff. The ability to put transfers in positions to be immediately successful. It's a formula that has worked so consistently for her that that there's no reason to think it won't continue to.
Absolutely. The men, of course, also playing Ohio State this weekend, and another important game, or every game is important in the conference for the Hoosiers, as they have a home game after winning a tight one on the road in Minnesota. I know a lot of fans got a little upset about that, but to me, and I keep using the phrase, it was an Al Davis game to me. Just win, baby. Get on the plane, get home. Don't worry about that one and put that away. Now they've got an Ohio State team coming in that's lost 6 of 7, but is still a good enough team that you have to worry about them. They're dangerous because they've lost 6 of 7. They've been hit with some injuries as well here and there. But Indiana this is another game and an opportunity to win 5 Big Ten games in a row, something they haven't done since, I think, 2016, the last Big Ten championship season they had. So this is a chance for them to continue to put some things behind them.
Yeah, Ohio State's a funny team. It's just kind of hard to figure Ohio State out. I mean, they've lost 6 of 7. The one win was kind of this really impressive performance at home against Iowa, and then they turn around and trip against Illinois too. It's also worth saying this is their 4th road game in 5. So they're probably feeling just a little bit road weary at this point too. But they've beaten Rutgers, they've beaten Cincinnati, they've beaten Iowa, they've beaten Northwestern, which right now is actually something worth kind of bragging about based on where Northwestern is. And the metrics have held up. They can score the ball really well. The net still likes them. I think this would still be a quad 1 win, at least for the moment, for Indiana. They're 20 or so in Ken Palm. I think that, I understand people who got very nervous during the Minnesota game. You're allowed to lose a game you're allowed to win a game the way you won the Minnesota game, so long as you turn around and beat Ohio State. Every season's going to have games like Minnesota. Particularly, I mean, that was a particularly strange game. Indiana didn't have its head coach. Minnesota didn't have its leading scorer. Minnesota kind of ripped up its normal game plan and went to something completely different that it took Indiana a while to figure out. I think it is worth saying Indiana still, Indiana kind of – the reasons why Indiana won that game were, 1, Indiana held tightly to its ability to defend. Minnesota did, averaged a little under 0.9 points per possession in that game, didn't score in the last 320, missed its last 11 shots. And Indiana had far and away the best player on the floor. And, I think about some of the games that Indiana has come up short in the last 2 or 3 years. Often what we said was Indiana put themselves in a position to win, but they couldn't dig in and make the winning plays when it mattered, and the other team just had somebody better. Thinking about the Rutgers loss at home last year, the Wisconsin loss at home last year when Johnny Davis just took over late. You're allowed to have games like that so long as they don't become a habit. And if Indiana turns around and wins tomorrow night at home against Ohio State, then Minnesota is a distant memory. Is just a as you said, just sort of tick the box and move on game and nothing more. And it doesn't, given the circumstances surrounding the game, it does feel more than likely it was just a one-off bad performance and not a sign of things to come. But we'll see. Obviously, I mean, this is a big stretch, I think, for Indiana. Ohio State at Maryland, Purdue, Rutgers. After that, you play 4 of 5 on the road. You've got to make hay while the sun is shining here. You're playing well. You're starting to get healthy again. Trace Jackson Davis is on a tear like we haven't seen in years from an Indiana player. You've got to find a way to really gather some success, gather some quality wins, get yourself well above 500 in conference play, and that'll allow you some wiggle room to navigate that stretch where you do play 4 of 5 on the road. I know there are people asking about, can Indiana get back into the Big Ten title conversation? I think that's probably too far away for anybody to think about right now. I think all you can think about if you're Indiana is control what you can control. And if you really want to think big enough picture about the Big Ten title, you got to beat Purdue twice. You got to win out at home. Neither of those things is going to be easy. So just sort of set the Big Ten championship race to one side and just worry about just keep winning. Just keep pushing yourself up the standings, putting yourself in a better position for the Big Ten tournament. adding quality wins for your March resume, for your NCAA tournament resume. And this is the kind of game where you do that. It's an opponent that's a little tricky in some ways. It's an opponent that has had a funny season, but can still definitely beat you if you don't play well. But it's also a Saturday night at home. You've won 4 in a row. Your crowd should have all day. The weather's not going to be terrible. Your crowd should have all day to plan around the game, to get up for the game, to get in the building for the game. And it's the kind of game that if you want to be a top 4 team in the league, if you want to, let's say, finish 12-8, 13-7, and just have the kind of season where on Selection Sunday you're a 4 seed, a 5 seed, you're comfortable. This is the kind of game that you win without a ton of headache. You just find a way.
We're not quite at the halfway point, but pretty close. Bryce Sensabaugh has pretty much, I'm not going to say sewn up because nothing is sewn up, but he has looked like the Big Ten freshman of the year. So far, he's just really been a key player. Not that other freshmen haven't been keys at Purdue and Indiana, but he has really kind of stood out as a freshman. More so, Jalen Hood-Schifino is done well. Has struggled some with the shooting here and there, but he's been a constant for Indiana. Of course, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer at Purdue. But Bryce Sensabaugh has kind of stood out in that category as freshman of the year for Ohio State and has done a hell of a job for them this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably fair to install him as the front runner. And as you said, there's time left, and Jalen Hood-Schifino and both the guards at Purdue, I think, could have something to say about that race in the second half of the season. But if you look at Sensabaugh's numbers, he's the biggest threat. He's 6'6". I mean, this was the kind of player Indiana struggled to defend last season. And I thought that despite him scoring 26 points, I thought Indiana did some really important things on Terrence Shannon in that win at Illinois that maybe we didn't see them do, against a Johnny Davis or against a Keegan Murray consistently enough last year in terms of taking him out of the game when it was most important to. Bryce Sensabaugh is going to test that too. 6'6", 235. He's averaging 17.4 points and 5.5 rebounds. He's shooting almost 46% or 43% from three. I mean, this is a guy that if you just look at look at the games he's put together. I mean, since the Big Ten restart, it's 18 points, 21 points, 22 points, 18 points, 20 points, 18 points, 27 points, only 14 on 13 shots in the loss in Illinois. But even when Ohio State has played poorly, or at least has not won, Sensabaugh still played well. And that Iowa game last Saturday, 27 points in 27 minutes, 10 of 12 from the floor, 5 rebounds, 4 of 5 from three. He is going to stress Indiana's defense, and he is the player that opens a lot of things up for, other players on that team like Justice Suing and Zed Key and Bruce Thornton and Sean McNeil, who's a really good shooter. Indiana's got to, at very least, find a way to isolate Bryce Sensabaugh within the offense. That's what I think they did a good job of with Terrence Shannon. Shannon got his points, but you never felt like the game was running through him, and you never felt like he was in control of it. Certainly not in the moments when the game was sort of most in the balance in that game at Illinois. You've got to find a way to sort of isolate Sensabaugh too, and accept that, hey, he's going to score some points. You're not going to hold him to 5 points on 11 shots, but make sure that when he's scoring his points, they're coming in compartments of the game where you're in control, and all he's really doing is keeping Ohio State from getting, kind of completely shoved out the door.
And then, of course, now a race that has changed, at least in my mind, is the race for Player of the Year. Zach Edey, of course, on the number one team in the country, the number one team in the conference, Purdue, and only lost once, and he has played constant throughout the entire season. You cannot take that away. And where Trace Jackson Davis did have a lull, Indiana had a lull. People can blame it on his back or not. I don't care. There were times where I don't think he played like he should have played, period. But he's playing at a level above anything I've seen Zach Edey do. Hell, he's playing at a level above we've seen anybody do in 25 or 30 years from certain statistics. And to me, he's equaled that race. And to me, this is a dead heat from here out. Of course, they play against each other twice, and that will go a long way in settling that debate. But in my mind, and I and I consider myself as unbiased as anybody, I think this is Zach Edey is not in front of this race in my mind personally anymore.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, I keep an eye on the Ken Palm. Ken Palm always kind of has like a first team all conference for every conference. And right now, Zach Edey, and he ranks it. Zach Edey's 1, Trace Jackson Davis is 2, Jalen Pickett's 3, Terrence Shannon's 4, Jameer Young's 5. I think Sensabaugh had been kind of 5th. I think Jameer Young kind of knocked him out, the guard from Maryland. So Sensabaugh's in that range. You know, if you're asking me to kind of put those players into tiers, I think Shannon, Sensabaugh, and Young are all on one level. Pickett's on a level above them, at least for the moment. And Jackson Davis and Edey are on a level above him. You know, as you said, there's a lot of basketball to be played, and the 2 meetings between these two teams will probably play a big role in kind of people's perception, media's perception, the conference's perception of the race between the 2 of them. This is one of these things that kind of happens too a little bit sometimes is, you know, sort of like, how do you weight team success and individual success? I remember I was the only person who voted for Yogi Ferrell over Denzel Valentine for Big Ten Player of the Year in 2016. And Valentine was outstanding that season. He had multiple triple-doubles. He led the conference in a couple key defensive or offensive categories. He was one of the best players, one of the best all-around guards the league has seen in 10, 15 years. And my argument was basically just that Yogi Ferrell won the Big Ten, and he had a season that, for a point guard, in many ways equaled what Denzel Valentine did, maybe not in every way, but without Yogi Ferrell, Indiana doesn't come anywhere near the Big Ten title. So then you kind of have this conversation about, well, you know, Trace Jackson Davis sort of resuscitated Indiana's season. Without him, where would Indiana be? On the other hand, it's, you know, Zach Edey is what makes Purdue a matchup nightmare. How do you separate those two? Edey is, you know, I think Jackson Davis has been scoring a little bit more recently. As you said, Edey's been more consistent with the scoring and the rebounding across the course of the season. On the other hand, Jackson Davis has been better at rim protection, and he's starting to become a real facilitator as well. He's, he's like top 15 in the conference in assists, and he's one of only 2 bigs in the conference that can say they're top 5 in scoring, rebounding, and blocks, and top 15 in assists. In fact, he might be the only big that can say that specifically. So, you know, there's a lot of basketball to be played, and, you know, there's a real chance that race just kind of clarifies itself by, you know, somebody gets hurt or somebody's team really falls off or whatever. But right now, I do think what felt like it was kind of a clear sort of Zach Edey coronation. I would say coronation, but it felt clear that was Zach Edey's to lose for a while this season. I think Trace Jackson Davis has succeeded at this point in making it a two-player race.
What's up next for you, Zach? Of course, I know you'll be covering the men's game tomorrow.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's, you know, it's just the relentlessness of all of it. I mean, men's game tomorrow, and then Maryland on Tuesday, and you mentioned this a little while ago. I mean, Indiana at Iowa on February 9th. Iowa at Indiana on February 9th. Michigan at Indiana on February 16th. Indiana at Ohio State on February 13th. I'm talking about on the women's side. Indiana goes to Purdue on February 5th, hosts Purdue on February 19th, goes to Iowa to finish the season in what could be an explosive game on February 26th. I mean, the women's season, it's funny because they've beaten what? I'm just looking at the schedule, 1, 2, 3, 4 ranked teams just since January 12th. And they've still got, if you look at their schedule upcoming, they've still got 1, 2, 3, 4 games against ranked teams, plus both games against Purdue. It's going to be a very busy and fascinating winter in Bloomington.
You know what? And one thing I did not touch on, and I should have, is the Player of the Year race in women's basketball. I think it's going to come down to Caitlin Clark and Mackenzie Holmes, and that will probably come down to those 2 meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it may well, and obviously Caitlin Clark, and this is one of those things you can argue, is it fair or not? She'll have the built-in advantage of some people just kind of seeing her as well. She's already won it, and so
yes,
you've got to go knock her off to win it yourself. But you win the league, you knock you knock everybody off and win the league. And this is a stat that just came across my timeline. It's from last night, but it's from Opta. In the last 3 games, Mackenzie Holmes, 30 points, beat number 21 Illinois, 25 points, beat number 13 Michigan, 26 points, beat number 2 Ohio State. In the last 20 years, only one other college basketball player, male or female, has had 3 straight 25-point games in the regular season, all in wins over AP top 25 foes. That was Maya Moore. So that's the company Mackenzie Holmes is keeping here. We've talked about that with Trace Jackson Davis in terms of the records he's setting and the achievements he's reaching and all those things. Well, Maya Moore is the company Mackenzie Holmes is keeping right now. She's not just a Big Ten Player of the Year candidate. I think she's a genuine National Player of the Year candidate. And if she's going to beat Caitlin Clark out to one or both of those, winning this league is going to be probably a big part of that.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Make sure you give him a follow if you're not already for his coverage of Indiana sports. Zach, thanks, buddy. We'll see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. See you tomorrow night.
We've got Angel Escobedo up next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, the head coach for Indiana Wrestling, another program that has been on the rise after sitting dormant for quite some time, but he's got the Hoosiers rolling right now. We're back with that and much more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Cabello Restaurant, located on the square in Bloomington. Get the tastes and traditions of Southern Italy right here in Southern Indiana at Cabello Restaurant, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club Network. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. I'll be right back.
Yep.
Thanks for taking the time with us this morning, Coach.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Looks like some good food over there.
Yeah, he does all of his Friday shows at BB's Market.
Okay.
He usually samples a lot of the food.
Yeah, I've never been there. How is it? Is it pretty good?
I've never been there myself. I actually don't live in Bloomington, but he loves it.
Where do you
Jim
live?
Loves their. I live in just south of Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, nice.
Mm.
Hey,
I used to live in Jeffersonville.
Jeffersonville. Okay, Louisville's a great city.
It is, yes. It most definitely is. I've been around this area my entire life, pretty much.
Oh, you have? Okay. What did you go to school in Jeffersonville, or did you like high school and stuff, or where?
No, I went. So when my family moved over here, I went to high school in Bullitt County, Kentucky, which is, like I said, just south of Louisville, and then went to WKU for college.
Okay.
But I was always an Indiana fan. That's why I associate with all this stuff.
Nice, man. I'm sure you got a lot of shit.
Yeah, down here, growing up, definitely, especially from the UK crowd.
Yeah, from the UK crowd, man. I bet they were all over you.
Yep.
Angel, how are you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you, Jim? You
Good, sir. Yeah, Chef JD just brought out from scratch made salmon patties, man. And I was like,
that's what I said. It looks good. Looks good.
They were sitting in front of me for this whole time, and I was like, I don't want to eat that so bad. I'm so hungry.
Now, where's that?
Yeah, I wish
where are you? Where is that located? Because I've never been.
It's you know where Bloomington South High School is, of course.
Yep.
There's the Starbucks and a McDonald's right next to Bloomington South.
Yep.
As you're coming back would be north. Then right next to McDonald's. It sits back off of the road a little bit.
Okay.
It used to be Wagon Wheel here in Bloomington. Now it's BB's Market, and there's a restaurant that's going in right beside it as well. But
oh, really?
I got it. It just
30 seconds.
But yeah, food is incredible.
Yeah,
we need to get the wrestling team out here and feed them.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe after season because they got to make weight.
That's right.
All right, here we go, guys.
I'm going to bring it back up.
Updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hops' Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Friday, of course, from BB's Market here in Bloomington, part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wild Club. Make sure you stop by and enjoy some great food, whether you want to eat it here, take it to go, get some great custom meats or greatest in-house made products, full-size bakery as well. Not good for Angel Escobedo and his group, as he just reminded me, because they got to make weight. But other than that, after the season, Angel, you have to bring the team in.
Yeah, you know what I always tell them, I'm like, I have to be a selfless coach, so I need to eat all your food for you guys. That way you got to make weight. I got to make those sacrifices to make us a good team.
Well, you've certainly done that, whatever it is taken, because Indiana wrestling, while they were good back in the 30s when they won a Big Ten title?
Yeah, national title, yep.
National title, and then, of course, you won a national championship as a Hoosier wrestler, but there's been nothing else hardly for Indiana wrestling after that until now. And what is this, your fourth season?
This is one of my fifth season. Yep.
I remember when you first started, and I was thinking, that poor guy. Seriously, though, because you're at a program that has been, I hate to say at the bottom, but they were at the bottom because this is the toughest conference in your sport.
Yes.
But you have turned it around, man. And congratulations, first of all. The Hoosiers were ranked in the top 20. You've got wins over top 20 Big Ten opponents. This is major turning around of a sport. So, again, congratulations. But, man, that's got to – I know you don't take time to enjoy it, but, dude, you've got to realize that's a phenomenal job that you've done so already.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, we are having a phenomenal season. I think when we – talked about it in the beginning of the year, we said, what can this team be capable of? And our goals were we want to, get 3 Big Ten wins. We're already at 2. I think we do a little more than that. We wanted to beat 3 ranked teams. We already done that. We wanted to double our wins. We only had 3 last year. We've already doubled that with 6 this year. We're still, we still have 5 more duels left. So this group, they are, they're motivated, they're committed. They're a group that really want to put Indiana wrestling on the map, and they're doing that. I think, this whole team comes back next year. So, I mean, we're going to accomplish a lot of things with this group.
You had to sell guys to come to Indiana, guys good enough to win at the level that you're winning at right now. So you had to sell guys to come to Indiana without the advent of NIL, without that kind of stuff, just pure on coming to win. How are you able to get that done?
Yeah, so I always say in my 2019 recruiting class, which most of these guys are around, they're from that class. What I told them was we're going to ignite this program. We're going to ignite Indiana. So that was kind of the slogan we used, ignite Indiana. You guys are being brought in here to put this program on the map, to, ignite the flame. And once we ignite it, we're going to keep rolling from there. So those guys, they really took ownership of that. And they say it still to this day, like, we lit the flame and we're going to keep it burning. And, we were at the bottom of the Big Ten and, we want to get to the top. So right now where we're sitting, we're in the middle pack. So, I mean, we've made a big jump from the bottom to the middle pack. But then now the next step is to get all the way up to the top.
Well, toughness is something that goes hand in hand with wrestling. I can speak from experience because I consider myself a good athlete through the years, but I wrestled 1 year in 8th grade, and I realized these guys are already way ahead of me, and I am not going to sit here and get my ass kicked like this. It's brutal. It's the hardest physical sport, I think, along with swimming, but beyond swimming, I think, because you're there's no rest. Your body does not rest during a match, even when it looks like they're in a certain position. There's no rest. The muscles are always tense, and it's nonstop, and it is a brutal sport in terms of what it takes out of you. But it's actually a beautiful sport to watch. You guys have a match tonight as well, but I learned that it takes the toughest of the toughest to be wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, mentally tough, physically tough. You think you have someone stepping across from you that physically wants to beat your ass, right? And they're after you, and they're trying to do everything they can to break you, not even like mentally, but physically. And you can't let up at any point. It's a 7-minute match. You go into overtime, it could go to a 9-minute match, maybe even a 10-minute match. So, that's a long, long match. And, we have to prepare our guys every single day for someone to do that to you. Like I always tell my guys in the room, your practice partners right now are nice because they like you. But once you get on that mat, someone's not going to like you. They're not going to give it easy on you. They are trying to win. So they're trying to dominate and impose their will. We have to train to be prepared for that. And we have to be the ones dominating.
Boy, it'd be great if we could get during the halftime of a men's basketball game, have one match. And for the people that have never seen a wrestling match, I think that would go a long way right there, man.
Would. I think a lot of people would, be entertained. It's an entertaining bout. I mean, I think it's nonstop. Our dual meets, they're an hour and a half of nonstop action, just continuous action. No breaks. You don't have timeouts. You're just going and going. 7 minutes. There's no timeouts. I can't, call a timeout and tell my guys, hey, you need to make these adjustments. It's either you're prepared or you're not.
One of our listeners that's on here quite often, I don't know if he's on today or not. He's usually is. Forrest lives down in Georgia, wrestled for Indiana 50 years ago, I think.
Wow,
he was a 50-year I-man, but want to give him a shout-out. I don't think I've seen him on here today. He's going to be disappointed he missed this, but he'll be happy that we gave him the shout-out. You guys have a match tonight, right?
Sunday. We go against Purdue.
Sunday.
Yep, Sunday. We go against Purdue, yeah. So, big rivalry. We're looking to, take that back. You need to win the state back, and, I think this is a year for us to do it.
How important is it for you guys? And I know it's important to win because it's a rival, because it's a conference match, but for statewide, how important is that? Wrestling's a big sport, high school sport in Indiana.
Yeah,
as you know.
It's a single class. It's, one of the best states in the country for wrestling. So to win this duel, you're now looking at getting the state champs out of Indiana to come to IU over Purdue. So it's a big duel in terms of recruiting.
What was the moment that you saw that match and you were like, wow, we're doing this. This is really happening.
Princeton. So I remember when we scheduled Princeton, someone had asked, is that a good dual meet to schedule that early in November? We have 2 returning national finalists. They're a top 25 team. The program's rolling. You guys finished last in the Big Ten last year. Like, it doesn't seem like a smart scheduling move. And I said, I think my guys are ready. I really do. I think we're going to shock a lot of people. And my guys came out there on fire. I mean, they just physically and mentally broke Princeton, and we kind of dominated that whole duel meet. And that shocked the country because that was Princeton's first loss of the season. And they were this team that was just coming off the top 15, placement at NCAAs with those 2 national returning finalists. They had a lot of momentum, and we were able to take them out, that first duel meet in Assembly Hall.
Where is the match with the meet with Purdue on Sunday? Is that here?
Lafayette. No, it's Lafayette.
Is there a return match when they come to Bloomington?
Yeah, that'll be next year. So we only do one per year. Yeah.
So you guys got one shot, man.
We got one shot. That's what it is. You get one shot. Yeah.
So do their meets take place in
Where the
daggone
volleyball, where it competes. Where the volleyball?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where volleyball competes. Holloway
So,
Hall,
and
I think.
yeah, I'm not sure, but as they've had a good volleyball program as well. Wilkinson Hall, of course, here in Indiana, where the men's wrestling team is a newer facility. How's that been? Has that helped? Has that with fans, with the noise? Because I know that's a loud place.
It's a loud place. Yeah, it helps. I mean, my guys love competing at home. They tell me how loud it gets, especially compared to University Gym where we used to be. Like that place wasn't the best. It didn't get that loud, but Wilkinson Hall is, it's a special place to compete. Every time I bring recruits in, they always say this is one of the nicest facilities they've seen, especially in the Big Ten for wrestling. So we're blessed, and that's a big recruiting tool for us.
What is the season for wrestling? I'm sure it's probably a little different than say basketball.
We're almost the same as basketball. So we start up in November, just like basketball, and then we end in March. Basketball goes a little bit longer, a couple weeks after us, but we're around the second week of March, second or third week of March when we finish.
Is there a Big Ten tournament in wrestling?
Yep. Yeah, so there's a Big Ten tournament. That's the first weekend of March. And then we have about a week and a half off, and then we go to NCAA tournament that third week in March.
Well, man, it's going to be an exciting year for us to follow you, and looking forward to doing that and getting you back on here and putting you to the screws, especially if you don't come back from West Lafayette with a win.
I know.
I'm sure there'll be some people disappointed in you, man.
My guys, I'll tell you what, they're excited. They've been, they had this date circled. Last year, Purdue put up this graphic of, how many straight over IU, and my guys did not like that at all. And so they've been chomping at the bit for this doing it.
How many is that?
Man, I can't remember, but it's too long. I think it's been as long as the last time we beat them was maybe when I was in college. So that's too long ago.
Well, you'll have to come back next time, and it'll be 0.
It's 0, exactly. It'll be 1 for us.
Angel Escobedo, the head coach for Indiana Wrestling, and has turned that program around and into a top 20 team, man, in the Big Ten Conference and the country. Can't thank you enough for coming on with us, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for having me.
You as well, Angel. We'll see you soon. Angel Escobedo here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Chef JD keeps coming out with some great stuff. First of all, this sat in front of me for a minute. This from scratch made salmon patties. JD, tell me about this because it looks incredible. I've already had a little slice of it.
Fresh Alaskan salmon, capers, onions, red peppers, and fried to order, coated in panko, skillet fried, and that's a grilled pineapple teriyaki burger.
Ooh, don't think I'm not going to be eating this in about how many minutes? About 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes.
Those are today's specials for lunch.
Man, and they are special, believe me. Trust me. And it's always special out here at BB's. Stop in any time and pick up either food to go or whatever you want. But a great place to be. And, man, another fun day, John Boy. See what happens? See what you miss out on?
Yeah, maybe another.
You have me jealous every time you're at BB's. Next time I'm in Bloomington, I need to make a special trip out of my way from whatever I'm there for, whatever sporting event I'm attending, and go to BB's Market.
Why would you not? How could you not? Yeah, I'm sitting there looking like, all right, which one am I going to go? I'm like, doesn't matter because I'm going to have both of them. It doesn't matter because I'm going to have both of them. I can't thank you guys enough for coming along. I can't thank everybody enough for being on the program today. Of course, Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, Angel Escobedo, the head coach for Indiana Wrestling, and miss anybody, John? K-Bro. And K-Bro joined us early on. Forgot about K-Bro. Can't do that. Gosh dang it.
Beginning on Monday in the region.
Yes.
Indiana
WJRB.
On
WJOB. There you go. Tell them about it.
That's right. Yeah. For those of you who watch on YouTube or listen to us via podcast, if you're looking for another way to check out ISB Radio, especially if you're in the northwest part of the state or the Chicago area, be sure to tune in beginning Monday at 10 a.m. Central Time. From 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., ISB Radio will be on the air on WJOB, the region in Hammond, Indiana.
Which is 11 a.m. for us normal.
11 a.m. Eastern if you happen to be in the Eastern time zone.
Just kidding. Yes. But big thank you to everybody today. Thanks to John, the producer, for getting us, keeping us between the white lines. And, of course, thanks to Lee for coming up for breakfast here at BB's this morning as well, joining us. And the biggest, of course, thanks goes to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. Cannot thank you enough each and every day. We appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. Big game coming up tomorrow for Indiana, of course, versus Ohio State. And then tonight, you go out and catch some high school basketball someplace. Support the high schoolers. It's a great Friday night to do that. But until Monday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.